Coming up is a review on how the men's volleyball team played against the Maryville Saints.
Plus a look at the indoor track and field results from the Indiana Relays.
Also, Lucas Kim is here with another edition of The Ramble.
I'm Samantha Martinez.
And I'm Elizabeth Winchester.
All this and so much more.
Rambler Sports Locker begins now. Welcome back, Ramblers. We have a great show planned for you.
That's right, but before we begin, I got a question for you, Elizabeth.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, shoot.
Would you ever order food during an event?
You mean like Grubhub or DoorDash?
Yes.
I mean, if I'm in person, no, but if I'm at home, all bets are off.
I can agree with you on that one.
In case those at home don't know what we're talking about, Amelia Villhauer is here to talk about an incident involving an Uber Eats driver at a recent Loyola men's basketball game.
Loyola men's basketball games are an exciting event for everyone watching, but their game against Duquesne on January 25th took a turn and left audiences wondering, who ordered the Coke? 4 minutes into the second half of the game on the 25th, a man not dressed in a basketball jersey walked onto the court with a McDonald's bag and cup in his hands. He repeated the phrase, quote, DoorDash, multiple times while walking down the sideline. He was quickly escorted away by a security guard telling him, quote, you gotta get off the court, man, end quote. However, despite the disruption caused, the man was not escorted out of the building, but instead joined the student section after he was off the court. Duquesne University reported that the entire DoorDash incident was just a harmless prank put together. This was also made clear when Loyola Assistant Director of Video Operations Austin Hansen pointed out the man was wearing a mic and the entire student section had their phones out to film him. Hansen was standing on the courtside filming the game and caught the entire incident on camera. A Duquesne official released a statement saying, quote, while the incident may have seemed funny at the time and no harm was done, we are mindful that incidents like this can put players and officials at risk. I cannot wait to see what happens if there are any sports games at Duquesne on April Fool's Day. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Amelia Villhauer.
Thanks, Amelia. The indoor track and field team traveled to Bloomington, Indiana on January 27th. Here's executive producer Gabbi Lumma with the highlights.
Thanks, Samantha. This past weekend, the Loyola track and field team traveled to Bloomington, Indiana to take part in the Indiana Relays. The Ramblers look to continue their success after breaking facility records at the Blue Demon Alumni Classic. Day one saw Fran Hendrickson, Jayla Johnson, and Maddie McLean record personal bests in the women's mile, women's 60-meter hurdle runs, and women's 600-meter races, respectively. Johnson won her heat and advanced to the finals on day two. She placed 5th overall with a time of 8.99 seconds. Day two saw the Ramblers pick up more personal records. Sophomore distance runner Finn Harrington came in second in his men's 3,000-meter heat with a personal best time of 8 minutes and 16.52 seconds. This time is the 9th best in program history. Graduate distance runner Chris Devaney also made the Loyola record books. His 6th place finish in the men's mile is the 10th best time in program history in 4 minutes and 8.11 seconds. Next, the Ramblers will split up to take on 2 meets in February, 10th and the 11th, the Badgers Windy City Invitational here in Chicago, and the GVSU Big Meet in Allendale, Michigan. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Gabbi Lumma.
Thanks, Gabbi. The indoor track and field team is on a roll this season.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
In more Loyola sports, Vanesa Hoxha attended a co-ed volleyball tournament hosted by Loyola and UIC to fundraise money for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund.
Last Friday, on January 27th, Loyola's Palestine Children Relief Fund collaborated with the University of Illinois Chicago's Palestine Children Relief Fund to hold a volleyball fundraising tournament event. The event took place at the UIC Student Recreation Facility and was held to raise money for the kids in Palestine and the Middle East. Players and spectators both paid a fee which would go directly to the PCRF. There were 10 teams that consisted of players throughout the Chicagoland area, and each team paid $100 to play. Spectators paid $3 at the door.
The beautiful world of sports. It's bringing communities like Loyola and UIC together for a great cause.
She invited us out for this event. They just reached out to us and asked if we wanted to collaborate, and we thought it was a good idea. So we did it before, and we thought we could help them out. Turnout's really good. Alhamdulillah. Like, there's a lot of people here, and for Loyola, we had a lot of people. In the future, like based off of these events, like we want to collaborate more and have more events together, and hopefully hopefully like we can build like some kind of networking community between PCRFs and constantly like help each other.
To remind themselves what they were playing for, players wore PCRF merchandise on the court, traditional clothing like thobes and kufiyas off the court, all while enjoying the games with the inviting sound of Arabic music. This Scream team placed third, and I spoke with one of the members, Jihad Awad, about his thoughts on the event and what it meant to him.
Wonderful crowd. We got a lot of people today to support PCRF's tourney. A lot of money involved to the children in Palestine back home. Beautiful event. Beautiful event. It's making everybody come together and have fun. At the same time, giving money to people back home.
A double elimination bracket allowed for players to take time off the court to grab a bite to eat, socialize, and connect with new people. The event raised $736 for the Palestinian children. To close out the tournament, I spoke with UIC's PCRF president, Mariam Elian.
We really want to grow PCRF to its full potential. We actually had a goal this year to raise $10,000, and we actually just beat that today. So yeah, this is the first event of the second semester, and we already beat our goal for the whole school year. I think sports can be really tricky because they can either put you so much closer together or further apart depending on how competitive you are. But I feel like this event, we showed a lot of, brotherhood and sisterhood between one another just because we were so strong despite all of the competitiveness. At the end, everybody had a great time and even stayed back and watched every other team even though that they were out.
Started off with enemies on the court and ended with allies at the end. We are looking forward to seeing the world of sports continue to bring people and communities together. For the Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Vanesa, Hoxha.
That is a great cause to fundraise for.
That it is, but Loyola isn't the only one that is being spotlighted this episode.
That's right. George Gustafson is here to talk about a sport that you might not have heard of.
Hi Ramblers. Welcome to a new segment, Fun Sport Friday. Today we're going to be keeping it local and talking Chicago ball, also known as 16-inch softball. The sport boasts some odd rules. Players cannot wear gloves, and there are 10 in the field and 11 in the batting order, opposed to 9 and 9 in regular softball. Pitches must be lofty and underhand, and there is no stealing allowed. The sport was invented in the Windy City in the 19th century and became popular during the Great Depression because you didn't need any equipment other than a bat and a ball. And because of the size of the softball, it didn't travel very far and could be played in small parks or even indoors. In fact, because of its large following, there is now a Hall of Fame in Forest Park, Illinois. Even though it's below freezing this week, you can catch inside Chicago ball being streamed on Facebook by the Slow Pitch Softball Association. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm George Gustafson.
Thanks, George. We might just have to try out this new sport once we get the smush ball rolling. With the Super Bowl less than 2 weeks away, fans are curious about this season's championship roundup. Lucky for us, William Bazzone has the story.
Well, folks, after 4 long months of NFL action, the conference championships were played last Sunday, January 29th, to determine who will play in this year's Super Bowl. Out in Philadelphia, the NFC Championship pitted the top dog Eagles against the San Francisco 49ers. A slew of injuries and penalties hampered the Niners throughout the afternoon, and it was the Eagles that came out on top. They won by a score of 31-7, sealing their second trip to a Super Bowl in the last 5 seasons. After making it to their 5th straight AFC Championship game, the Kansas City Chiefs played host to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 2nd straight year. In what was one of the most exciting games of the season, the Chiefs defeated the Bengals 23-20 on a last-second field goal. They returned to the big game for the 3rd time in 4 years. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts will have a date with destiny in the desert, taking on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in just 10 days. Super Bowl 57 will be played at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, and kickoff is set for 5:30 p.m. Central Time. In other football news, legendary quarterback Tom Brady announced his retirement on Wednesday, February 1st. After a controversial offseason where he retired and unretired, then suited up for a disappointing 23rd season in the pros, Brady said his retirement is now, quote, for good. The 7-time Super Bowl champion and 3-time MVP goes out with many of the major passing records under his belt, and he'll rightfully be enshrined in Canton when his time comes. On behalf of our staff, we wish Tom all the best in his retirement. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm William Bazzone.
Thanks, William. I don't know who I'm rooting for this Super Bowl, but I'm definitely going to be watching. How about you, Samantha?
will be impossible not to watch, considering last year's amazing game.
True.
Next, the Ramble this week features 3 of our reporters alongside our favorite host, Lucas Kim. This week, they're discussing the new NFL Pro Bowl rules.
Welcome back to another edition of The Ramble. It's February and we're still in the 21st century. I'm your host, Lucas Kim, here with William Bazzone and an esteemed veteran of the show, Chloe Morrissey. In this episode of The Ramble, we're going to be talking about the new Pro Bowl rules and games. Every year, the best players in the NFL gather to show off their talented skills. Originating from the term All Madden teams from legendary coach John Madden, this year's Pro Bowl is a little different than those in the past. The NFC and AFC conferences will be split into 2 teams, and the one with the most points at the end of the weekend will win. One big change to the Pro Bowl is that this year will include 3 games of flag football, 7v7 for each game, with the third game basically becoming the championship for all the marbles. This new format comes from a series of complaints from fans that players no longer go all out during these games, and many back out because of injuries from the regular season. So my question to you guys is, what are your thoughts on this? Will, I'm going to start with you.
Chloe, it's great to have you back, but you know what else is great? I just love these new rules. It's so fun to just see these guys not have any pressure to like injure themselves, and I really like it. And the Pro Bowl games are back. I know, like, what was it, like maybe 3 years ago now that they had like, you know, the kick-tack-toe, I think that's what it's called at least. They had like the strength, like the obstacle course one. I think that's really cool, and it could really just add a more casual element to the game, which I think is sort of lost with the Pro Bowl because you are in full pads. You're just going all out. I mean, yeah, they did do that before, but you know, I for one am very excited to see the long drive this year because I think the last 2 summers now, they've done like the, you know, 4 quarterback tournament on like TNT with like Mahomes and Josh Allen versus Brady and Rodgers. So I think it'll be fun to see like who will be able to represent each conference and like hit the ball really far. So I'm excited for that personally.
I mean, yeah, I'm ready to see some golf between the 2 or like 2 good players, and then, you know, maybe it'll be a little bit better than last year's 2-hand touch game.
Yeah, well, you know.
Chloe, what do you have to say?
Well, it's great to be back, everybody, but unfortunately, I do not think that this was a smart move by the Pro Bowl to do this. I think that the fans want to see their favorite players playing a real game of football. Nobody wants to watch a watered-down version of football, especially right before the Super Bowl. Emotions are high. People just want to see their favorite players just kind of enjoy what football is all about, and that includes the tackling part. And I understand why they would change it due to injuries and whatnot, but once again, the Pro Bowl does not have the highest ratings. We know this, and I think that this move is really going to tank the ratings once again.
Well, I have a question for you. So this is one thing they changed about 15 years ago now. The Pro Bowl was moved from a week after the Super Bowl to a week before. Do you think that has any like impact? Because I think if we're just going to do it more casually now, I think it would be fun to see it like after the Super Bowl. Just like, you know, everybody, because like more people would participate in it too, right? Because we've seen a lot of people back out because of injuries. You know, they just don't want to do it, and that's why they have Tyler Huntley in it this year. And I mean, maybe it'll be fun to see him in flag football because he's so athletic. And I think that's another thing that I really love about the flag football games is it's like you get to see what kind of plays these guys run. Like I said a minute ago, you know, without pads on, it's, you know, you see these 250-pound guys running full speed at each other, and then you just have to like rip off their flags.
I see what you're saying, but like that's like another week of football that you're taking away from people because like there's basically been football like every single week since August, and like for them to have it after the Super Bowl, I mean, I don't think your Super Bowl guys are even going to play.
Well,
because they won the chip, why are they going to play another game?
Well, I don't know, for fun, right? It's like there's no pressure because when you move it a week before, you know, that's why we're seeing so many people drop out. So if you do it after, it's like, oh, we just won, let me go like have a week off, right? Because it used to be in Hawaii, like players would take their families. It would just be like, yeah, exactly. Like they would just like, it would be a vacation for them. It would be a way to like celebrate after like you win the championship.
I just don't think that anyone's going to really tune into that. You know, the Super Bowl is like the last hurrah of the season. That's like the big ending to everything that the players worked for all season long. I don't think that anyone's going to really pay attention to the Pro Bowl and what happens after the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, look, I still love it. I think it's going to be great for the game. I know you don't, but hey, you know what? We got to just see how it goes this year before anything else happens afterwards.
You're absolutely correct. Well, let's see how all these games turn out this year. Thank you for all for chiming in, and let's swing it back to Samantha and Elizabeth with some sports updates.
Thank you, Lucas. The NFL Pro Bowl rules are constantly changing alongside with fans' opinions. In Loyola news, the Loyola women's basketball team traveled to Richmond, Virginia on January 29th, where they took on Virginia Commonwealth University. VCU was a fierce competitor and secured a win over the Ramblers. The final score was 60-50. The women's basketball team wasn't the only team that traveled this week. The men's basketball team traveled to Dayton, Ohio. The Ramblers took on the University of Dayton. The Flyers proved to be a strong opponent. Loyola lost the game by 4 points. The men's volleyball team stayed in Chicago and took on Maryville University. I had the opportunity to cover the game.
The Loyola Ramblers are on a winning streak. That's right, you heard correct. The men's volleyball team has just secured its 6th consecutive win in its game against the Maryville Saints.
While Maryville secured the first point of the game, the Ramblers quickly took control and gained a lead on the Saints. They maintained their lead and won the set with a 17-point gap. The men's volleyball team continued their aggression into the second set. With the Ramblers delivering back-to-back kills, Loyola drew ahead by 9 points. They remained ahead for the rest of the set before winning it with a score of 25-13. Fans noticed that the Saints started the third set with a fighting spirit and secured a lead over the Ramblers.
I also thought the other team was starting to play harder because I thought that they understood that if they didn't win that set that they were going home. So.
However, unlike the Ramblers, the Saints were unable to maintain more than a 4-point lead. After a timeout called by Maryville, the Ramblers attempted to come back, were unable to secure a win over Maryville. The Saints won the third set, 25-21. While the first kill of the first set went to Loyola, Maryville secured a lead thereafter. The Ramblers tied with the Saints multiple times, but were unable to take the lead till their 17th point. The two teams remained neck to neck for the next few points. However, Maryville took the lead and attempted to win the set.
Personally, during the fourth set, I thought that we were going to lose that set, but the game overall, I think we definitely still had a chance throughout the whole game.
But after a service error from Maryville, the Ramblers managed to tie with the Saints 24-24. Both teams attempted to gain a 2-point lead over the other.
Yeah, it was electric. I mean, like, what was going through my head was just when you're at that point where you're so close to winning and you're in overtime, you just want to get that last point.
However, back-to-back kills from Brad Bell and Nick Martinsky sealed the win for the Ramblers. The final set featured 14 ties, 6 lead changes, and a final score of 32-30.
The men's volleyball team played the St. Francis Brooklyn Terriers on January 28th at Gentile Arena. If you want to see how the Ramblers played against the Terriers, check it out on ESPN+. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Elizabeth Winchester.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Sounds like the team is off to a great start to the season. Now, women's basketball news. Nate Keough reported on the team's game February 1st against Dayton. Let's hear it, Nate.
In celebration of National Women in Sports Day, the Loyola Ramblers and the Dayton Flyers clashed here tonight at Gentile Arena. Here are the highlights.
The Ramblers and Flyers both entered the game on losing streaks, so both teams were extra hungry for a victory. The Flyers brought the intensity, especially in the paint. The Ramblers and Flyers went back and forth for the entirety of the first half, as the Blurs were aggressive down low, won the rebound battle, and fought hard for turnovers. However, the Flyers were able to keep up thanks to an incredible 52% shooting percentage at the half, with the bulk of their points coming from inside. The Flyers took a 6-point lead into the half. The third quarter was fairly even, but Dayton continued to shoot phenomenally, relying on their height to score in the paint. A buzzer beater from Dayton put the Flyers up 9 at the end of the third. Despite a good effort in the final minutes, the Ramblers fell to Dayton 81-68. Loyola had no answer on the interior defense as Dayton finished the game shooting 57%. The Ramblers enjoyed a decent scoring performance of their own, including 14-point performances from Kira Chivers and from Maya Chandler off the bench. After the final whistle, Coach Guth had this to say.
Really disappointed in our lack of execution of the game plan. Our young women that get to look up to our team and see women that are strong women, that are battling on the floor, that are playing a sport. Sport is about empowering women.
This marks the 8th straight defeat for the Ramblers, all by double digits. They'll try to bounce back this Saturday at 1 p.m. when they take on the Fordham Rams in New York. For RSL, I'm Nate Keough.
That wraps up this episode of the Rambler Sports Locker.
To stay up to date on all things Rambler Sports, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Loyola RSL. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. From all of us here at Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Samantha Martinez.
And I'm Elizabeth Winchester.
And don't forget to turn off the lights.